going to keep pharmacists away from their salaries. When you work, you have to be paid. The only time it will recur is when we bring back the NPP, because they really don't think about Ghanaians. I mean, this, for me, this does not make sense. That a professional in a critical healthcare area, pharmacy, that is where you get your medicine. That is the end where you are getting well. The doctor looks after you, he prescribes, and the pharmacist is the one who has to give you the medicine. Their role is very critical.
That's right.
And 321 of them, you don't pay them. What kind of government is that? So it will only recur if the NPP comes back. You see, the budget is one of the most beautiful budgets I have seen. Humane, very bold. I mean, very human. And you could see that the budget was talking about Ghanaians. And this is what I always said, that Ghanaians have to be looked after. The budget was talking about us, how we do well, our health, our work, our existence. And that is one of the most beautiful budgets I've seen. You see, the opposition MPP is making noise, but they themselves, they were confused.
You say they are making noise?
Yes, they are talking all over. They did a press conference, right?
In fact, there's a press conference today at 10 a.m. They say they'll be giving us an alternative budget or so.
Alternative, but you see, I am so surprised that these people, sometimes you don't have to talk too much, that they even have the voice and the temerity to speak. They have the voice and the temerity to speak. The way they have brought this nation, and His Excellency Mahama is right now gradually putting the blocks together to make this nation work. Look at what happened with the 6th March celebration. They spent 50 million on one celebration. 50 million Ghana cedis. They don't care. I mean, for them, it's not about us. Ken Ofori-Atta never built a Mayo-type hospital in Ghana. He's sick, he's gone to Mayo. That is healthcare. And today they have an alternative. I mean, I am surprised. I am very surprised. You see, I think maybe shame is their second cloth, their second skin. So even when it is with them, they don't see it.
You don't think the NPP has a leg to stand on?
They don't have a right.
You say they don't have a right?
Yes, Ellen, they don't have a right to even speak. I'm telling you. They don't have a right.
But do they have a right to also look through your budget statement, highlight issues or any concerns?
I'm telling you that this budget,
that's their role.
We have gone through budgets. That's their role, just to criticize. They should rather say sorry to us. We never knew that something good like this can happen to Ghanaians. There are things we don't want to say. We never knew that something good like this can happen to us. They made us feel we are nothing. And now they have the right, the temerity to come and sit and say that they are criticizing what? They themselves, they are happy.
They're happy with the budget and the intervention that being made.
Didn't you see them saying that we are all involved in building our Ghana land? They were singing there. Didn't you see them singing? What does that mean? It is a clear departure from this press conference they are going to do. So they didn't even mean what they were saying in the song. Because if you are involved in building our Ghana land, then it means that you would know that what is in this budget is good for Ghana land. Mother Ghana needs to be looked after, needs to be treated well. Because you see, you can't just do anything anyhow. I heard Honorable Amin said that they did not implement the betting tax.
That's right.
Yes. Is that true? Does that even make sense? That you can sit and say that you did not implement the betting tax?
Because they themselves were looking to cancel or scrap the betting tax.
When?
If they got power. That's what they were going to do. So I know for many Ghanaians, they were quite confused.
Please, you believed, okay, something that you didn't implement. Why were you going to scrap? So what was, is it not a total confusion? You did not implement it, but you are going to scrap it. So what were you going to scrap? I mean, does it make sense? So for me, I don't think that they have anything to say. Because when you look at the highlights of the budget, there's a good budget. And most people, you see, I am talking about what I'm hearing the people say outside. Yesterday, I had conversations all over the place.
What are the people saying?
Oh, they are happy. They just want implementation, and I promise that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama will implement it. Whatever he says, he will do it. He's not joking with us. Oh. I mean, so far, so good. Whatever he says he will do, he will do it. Because he's a very humane person. And he loves this country, Ghana.
And you say having that type of leadership reflects in the lives of the people. You say that the budget reflects some kind of humanity. It's a humane budget.
It's a humane budget. I'm telling you,
is it because we've seen some scrapping of taxes? You've got COVID,
I'm not even looking at
venting, emissions.
Something like COVID tax. We said variously that they should even change it into a critical diseases fund. If you remember on this platform, they didn't care. What were they using the COVID fund for, the levy? We have childhood cancers. They didn't care. Children, I mean, went to hospital, they couldn't pay chemotherapy. They said that they are paying for renal patients, asked whether they paid. It was only concentrated in Korle Bu and the public hospital. What about those in the other hospitals? We don't have enough renal centers around. We don't have enough machines. So how would you concentrate it in, I mean, only maybe 37 and Korle Bu? What about the other places?
That's right.
And they'll come and make it big, look as if everything is fine. Do you know what people are going through? They didn't care. They didn't care. This is a humane budget. And I believe, and I know, not I believe, I say I believe, it means I'm not sure. I know for a fact. And I am so happy and proud that even when NDC was in opposition, everything I said about His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has come true in this budget. Yesterday at the swearing in of the deputy, he said, my budget. It was read on my behalf.
That's right.
Yes. This is the first time I'm hearing a president saying my owning the budget. Nana Addo was running away from his own budget. He never mentioned anything about his own budget. It was the Ken Ofori-Atta budget. It was the Amin Anta budget. But this one, the president said, my budget. Do you get him? He has owned it. And you can see him in the budget, the humaneness, the way he is humane and human. It is in the budget. Do you get me? So, I mean, I'm saying that anybody who is talking about it, you are just going to talk about it because of what? Because you are in opposition. If it is good, you should say it. Because Ghanaians are the people who are marking, not the MPP opposition in parliament. And you say from where you sit, the Ghanaian people are giving it a good pass mark so far. They are giving a good pass mark so far. I'm talking to people in the streets, and you see the way people are enlightened about these things. I am so surprised. They know exactly what it is. As for the betting tax, it's made everybody. The other one, the e-levy, that one, people are so happy. Because you go and send Momo, you do a bank transaction. You see, it's an electronic transaction levy. And they were taking so much money. There's nothing wrong with paying taxes. So nobody should say that we should not pay tax. When you go to America, everywhere, they pay taxes. That's right. But what is the taxes being used for? This e-levy, what did they use that money for? They said that if you go to IMF, we won't do e-levy. If we do e-levy, no IMF. We went to IMF, we were still paying e-levy. And they did not even tell us what they're using the money for. The COVID levy, they said they were using it to pay for free water, free electricity. They didn't use it to pay that. You say because we ultimately had to pay back those money. Yes, we had to, and we didn't even pay. They didn't even pay. When you go into the Auditor General's report, you remember 2023, it was there, still standing in the books of the utilities. Meanwhile, you are taking e-levy. So the proceeds of the e-levy, what were you using it for? And today, His Excellency Mahama is telling us that it can be done in a better way. They should rather learn, appreciate it, and be happy for Ghanaians. If they say that they are involved in building our motherland, then they should be happy for this because we So, Nana, I take it you won't be tuning in at 10 a.m. to hear some of these thoughts. Why should I tune in? Maybe there's something in there that the NPP. For what? But Nana, their time is extinct, they don't know. Thank you for those preliminary thoughts. Let's speak now, if he's available, with Mr. Bafo Kojo Ahinkra. He's the president of the Renal Patients Association, and we can talk about interventions for those who are afflicted with
kidney issues. Okay, well, before that, actually, let's take a listen to Honorable Minta Akandoh. He's the health minister during the inauguration of Mahama Cares. When we come back, we'll speak with Mr. Ahenkra and get some more on that.
No or sustainable sources of funding for the dialysis. It never happened. I was a ranking member on the committee, and at the time, we even suggested to make provision for dialysis. So they need to be a sustainable and a reliable sources of funding. That's why there's a need for us to provide this special purpose vehicle, a reliable one, so that if you are confronted with this chronic disease, it will not be the case that because you cannot afford the treatment, you then be nearing your grave.
So Honorable Akandoh there speaking about Mahama Cares and also specifically addressing the issue of kidney disease. And he says that there was no real sustainable provision, no sustainable funding for dialysis issues. Let's speak now with Mr. Bafo Kojo Ahenkra. Again, he's the president of the Renal Patients Association. Mr. Ahenkra, good morning to you.
Good morning, my dear.
How are you doing?
By God's grace.
All right. Now, I'm sure yesterday you had the opportunity to listen to the health minister, and he makes the assertion that there was no sustainable funding for dialysis. So by extension, no sustainable healthcare for those who are afflicted with kidney issues. But we know sometime last year, the NPP government at the time had mentioned some interventions, free dialysis for those who are afflicted with kidney issues. Fast forward to today, hearing what the Honorable Minister had to say. What do you make of that?
Okay, thank you very much. I can't say much, but all that I can say is that what the previous government made us understood was that they have put in it on the National Health Insurance Claim Package. So I was thinking everything was budgeted for, because I know we were told that they are putting some money into the government vote. That is some 57 million to cover the year 2025. I'm not in government. I don't know what really is going on, whether what they said was true or not true. We don't even know. But our problem is that what we heard yesterday, that there's no sustainable funding for it, we became a bit scared, because for now we don't know our fate. Are we going back to pay the 800, 700 per session, which you might need 2 or 3 times a week? We don't even know. What I was happy about yesterday, that I saw the Mahama Care being launched. So we were hoping that before or whatever, and then after, we'll continue with this. When the Mahama Care and things are already in place, maybe they can change this with it. Because for now, we don't know whether we are going back to square one, we're paying, or we are not going to pay, or we don't even know what is happening. That is the more reason we're trying to meet the health minister about 3 weeks ago to also have a chat with him to know exactly what is going on.
Surely. Now, with the dialysis treatment, have you been paying for that? So last year, when it was announced that there was free dialysis for certain categories of persons, was that implemented? Would you say that a number of your members were able to access this free dialysis?
Yes. From 1st December, as I speak now, members have been going there with their national health insurance card and dialyze. Free. I would say it's not free per se, but once you're a member of the national health insurance and you have the card and the card has not expired, once you go, you have access to the dialysis machine, then you can dialyze and go. So as at from 1st December up to now, it's still ongoing, smoothly ongoing, and we don't have most challenges. When you go with your card and you're a member of the national health insurance, you can dialyze and go peacefully.
Now, Mr. Ahenkra, is this the case across the board in different hospitals, or is this relegated to a few hospitals?
In fact, they selected about 20 hospitals to start with. That is what I know. I don't know whether they've added more to. We have 20 hospitals. Initially, we were doing about 7 hospitals. That is Kolebu, Cape Coast, Konfanoche, Tamale. And then I think Ifekwanta, yes. These were the 6. But later on, they add about 14 more to it for them to start with it. Because the point was that the money that the government was, the National Health Insurance was paying, some of the private hospitals were saying it was too below for them. When they ran on that course, they'll be at loss. So most of the people did not accept to take the National Health Insurance policy. So it was mainly the government hospital who took it up upon themselves to do it. And I can tell you, my sister, from December up to now, the mortality rate has gone down drastically. We hardly hear a patient is dead or this or that, because before it's coming to session, people were not having money to go and do it regular, as we are getting the opportunity now. So please, we still not know the ministers though. We want to have a chat with them and sit down and then let's see the way forward, because we cannot pay. We cannot pay. Like he said, there's no any sustainable funding. But I think something can be done. We should look at it holistically and then let's see the way. Because 800 per session, and we'll be doing twice. That is about 1,600 a week. Ideally, we are supposed to do 3 times a week. Where are you going to find the money from? Most of us, let me emphasize on this. The population of the kidney patient that we have, most of the people are between 18 to 45, where the youth, about 80% are the
Mr. Henkra, bear with me. You say between 18 years old to 45. That's a very youthful population. This is kidney diseases we're talking about.
Yes, that's what I'm telling you. So most of them are not working. They are school, who just completed school, and fortunately or unfortunately, they found themselves in this situation. So most of them are not working. We have even 10 years. We have a young girl as 16 years. He came on the machine when she was 13 years. She's there. We have 10 years. We have 9 years. They are there. Where are they going to find the money to sustain this thing? So please, we beg them. I know, Honorable Minta Akando, when last year, when the issues came, he was with us. He even stood in, help us agitate everything. So they should please really look at it and come back again.
All right. So, Mr. Henkra, you said at least since December, so far, when your members visit any of these 20 hospitals, government hospitals, they're able to take advantage of the free dialysis. What you're thinking about, though, is the way forward, given what the health minister had to say. Now, here are a few key highlights, policy highlights from the budget reading on Tuesday. You tell me what your thoughts are and whether or not this will go a long way in helping your members as well. So some 9.93 billion Ghana cedis allocated to the National Health Insurance Scheme, and also an uncapping of the NHIL to ensure direct funding for healthcare. And I'm sure you're aware that in past times, very little of the taxes collected for national health insurance actually were funneled to healthcare. Also, the finance minister talked about an expansion of free primary healthcare and also more funding for essential medicines, vaccines, and claim payments. What do you make of that?
Oh, in fact, honestly speaking, all those things that you've mentioned are very, very important and they are very good. I mean, we are hearing something more positive now. Like I said, sometimes we are not also engaged. Like I was saying yesterday somewhere that this Mahama care, they should have engaged some of us. I keep telling you, when you are sick, that does not mean you are dumb. We are all educated. We have our professions. It's rather unfortunate we are sick. So they can also solicit ideas for us. But the point that you just mentioned, very good, is welcoming. We just hope that things will work as they are planning so that we can all be free from some of these things.
Absolutely. And also, Mr. Henkra, looking forward, with this idea of a sustainable fund for dialysis, would you then want to see some very special interventions for kidney patients? So beyond the uncapping of the NHIL and the monies being pumped, do you think a specialized scheme should be set up for those afflicted with kidney issues? Because, I mean, the age range, 18 to 45, that's the youthful, strong population. So you've got Bahama Cares, for example, where it's a trust fund of sorts, where the populace can contribute. What do you make of that?
Yes, I agree with you totally with the question that you are asking. You see, the point is, I always say we are the affected people. So, like this Mahama care, they should have included us. so that at least we can also come up with some one or two things. Because, like I'm saying, sometimes I wish the cameras would go around to these hospitals and you see the situation there. Now, one gets...
All right. Well, Mr. Ahenkra, you're certainly part of that for Mahama Cares. This is for chronic diseases.
I heard it on TV yesterday.
Right.
I was not even aware when it was even coming to announce. I heard it on TV yesterday. I didn't know it was even coming to launch yesterday. So I've not been given any invitation to be part of it, or no, I've not received it. Maybe if it is on the way coming, I'll gladly welcome it. So we are hoping we get the invite, then we take it off from there. Let me chip in this. You see, when we get the kidney, anybody who has got a kidney-related person, it's not only just the dialysis, my dear. There's a lot. Your access to the dialysis machine, your medication, your injections, your labs, monthly lab. And the most sad part out of it is that if one gets a problem with his fistula or his the access, you need to come all the way to Accra. Most of the hospitals don't have the expertise there. So if one is dying of something, they have to refer the person to Accra. I have one of your reports.
All right, Mr. Ahenkra.
Thomas Khan.
Right, yes.
A problem with, yes, he's having a problem with his fistula. He was me in Accra last week. He had to go around to do a whole lot of things.
He's one of us. He's always
for him. He's in Caves. And in the last he's come to pay $750. $750 to collapse it. So, like I'm saying, there's a lot that we need to discuss with the authorities so that we can take it from there. Because the fistula alone, it will cost about $5,000 to get access. And now, if you have a problem with it, for him to come and maybe rapture it, you have to work it on. You are paying $750. You can contact Thomas Khan. If what I'm saying, I'm like, I was with him last week at Kolibu, Cardio, for these things. So there's more things that we need to sit down with the authorities for them to understand what I'm to do.
I know you mentioned that you have had engagements with the health minister even before he took office. And I'm sure that in due course, you will be able to have some more extensive engagements with him. Thank you so much for your time this morning and for weighing in on the conversation about the budget statement and in particular the health interventions that were mentioned. Susan, let me come straight to you. And you had a lot of thoughts behind the scenes as Mr. Ahenkra was speaking there, talking about kidney issues and the way forward.
Well, I mean, basically, today is World Kidney Day.
That's right.
Mr. Ahenkra should have mentioned that today is World Kidney Day, and the focus is on kidney ailments and stuff like that. So we empathize with the situation, and we look at it in terms of not just the dialysis aspect, but also the promotion of health, so that people don't get to that level. Because you can function on one kidney. So by the time you get to that dialysis level, that means, end-stage kidney disease. And that means, things would have happened. And so we would want as much also to focus on the the promotion of health, such that, some of the young people, some of these whatever substances they are drinking.
That's all contributed to the kidney issues.
Your kidney is filtering all sorts of things. You understand? It's a filter. So if you're poisoning yourself with all sorts of things, your kidney will filter them. Your liver does some, but your kidney also does, So we have to look at the promotion of health. Kidney disease just doesn't happen, okay? I think that one of the things in the Mahama Cares, also in the expansion of free primary health care, is to look at non-communicable diseases. We as a people are increasing our non-communicable diseases like hypertension, diabetes. These are things that bring about kidney disease. Okay, so we have to look at it in that whole spectrum. Why is it that we have young people who are hypertensive or who are diabetic? What kind of diets are we doing? What kind of stresses are we putting on people that they are getting hypertensive, they are getting diabetic, they're not looking after themselves, and they're ending up with kidney disease? You understand? So we have to, it's not just about the dialysis part, which is important, but that is the treatment. We have to look at the promotion, we have to look at the prevention, and then of course the treatment, rehabilitation, and if need be, the palliative care aspect of it. So it's a whole spectrum. And I'm glad that we're looking at non-communicable diseases, of which kidney diseases are part of, you understand? So it's a whole thing, you know. But I also wanted to touch quickly, before I leave, on the what they call period poverty,
right?
You know, menstrual hygiene and menstrual care. And I think some years back, the vindication for, she was then the Minister for Education, when she talked about free menstrual pads for...
Talking about Professor Nana.
Yes, and there was such an uproar. But down the years, people have come to understand the importance of having free menstrual pads, or sanitary pads, given to young ladies, you know, because we recognize that your biological function should not be an impediment to a good education. You know, because girls were missing 5 days every month, you know, because they couldn't afford to have sanitary pads, etc., to go to school and be comfortable. You know, and of course, like organizations like the Lady Pharmacists Association, they took some of these things up. I know the doctors, some of the associations also picked these things up, where we were actually given free pads out. I think the pharmaceuticals, they pressed on and pressed on to the government to remove taxes from pads, because there were taxes on pads. Hopefully that will not come back, and that there will be more incentive to our local manufacturers to increase their production of sanitary pads, such that the prices will come lower, so that if it's not just those who are getting free, but those who can afford are buying it at lower prices.
That's right.
I mean, we have to get to that place where, if you are going to have your period, you don't have the anxiety and the depression that comes with it, that how will I keep myself clean, you know, neat, and still go about my work and my school without worrying about how I'm soiling myself. No, so I really am happy that it is in the budget, that, you know, there's a policy to it.
That's
you know,
right.
And we hope that it's not just about doing, but we find sustainable ways of making sure that it happens. And we should not just look at it in terms of giving the free sanitary pads, but also looking at it in terms of the holistic picture. What kind of toilets do we have in our public schools in the first place?
Very important.
It is very important. So you have a public school, and there are about maybe 200 in the school, and they have 2 toilets, and one is for boys, one is for girls. And if you have 50 girls, you know, menstruating, how are they even going to share that washroom, able to change the pads and actually feel good about themselves?
That's
you
right.
know, so we need, free pads is one thing, but we also need to look at the toilet facilities in our schools, you know, and other places. I always say that you can tell an organization's sense of cleanliness and how they feel about themselves by going to their washroom and seeing how neat or how clean those washrooms are kept, because it's part of your dignity to go to a clean washrooms. This is a country where we still have open defecation. Is mind-boggling.
Because you talk about the schools, and some schools, they don't even have those 2 toilets you speak of. The children have to go behind the classroom. Even right in Accra, I've seen it with my own eyes. They go behind the classrooms. The girls will miss school because how can I change?
How can I change behind the classroom?
Yeah.
And even if I change, where will I put it? How is it disposed of? You understand? And already, culturally, we are made to feel as if our menses is a stigma, or is something to be ashamed of. You understand? So if that person is ashamed and she has the pad, where is she disposing of it? You understand? If there are no washrooms, you know, if there's not a comfortable place to change, and then of course, and if she keeps the pad on for a long period, she introduces infections to herself.
That's right.
You know,
you talk about dignity, maybe smells and all of that.
Smells and keeping, but you even will deal with the smells. But you can get an UTI. I mean, a urinary tract infection from keeping those pads on for a long time. You see, so I'm happy for this because a lot of work has been, but again, we need to expand it. And I hope that the free primary health care, the expansion, we're looking at WASH, isn't it? You know, and ensure that water and sanitation and all the hygiene things, you know, we have a proper system, you know, emanating from the free primary health care, looking at it in terms of sanitary provisions for our schools and our public places. I mean, I think it was in Nkrumah when he started the motorway also wanted to put washrooms on.
Yeah.
But the motorway itself was he had issues with the motorway. Why was he doing that road? How much more put toilets? I thought they thought that this man was...
That was too much.
No, that was too much. Then the road itself was a problem for them. And look, I mean, how many years down the line, 50 plus years down the line, is even in that bad shape, is the only highway that we have. You understand? We need to think about having proper public places that if something happened and I was on my way back to work and I had to go somewhere, I can stop and be able to relieve myself. So let's hope that, you know, these things, yes, we must start putting the systems in place so that we can have a better healthcare, because it is. If I can touch on the disaster management before I run off.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I just wanted to mention, we're going to put that on the screen briefly as you were speaking, some 292.4 million Ghana cedis is what has been allocated for the free sanitary pads for students.
Yeah.
So quite a decent budget put towards that. And I know that for a lot of us women, we're excited about that intervention. And we're also happy that we're actually talking about this subject quite freely, because it's a normal human bodily function. But for some reason, you talk about pads, menstrual health and hygiene, and people don't want to hear. But I mean, it's a fact of life. And I don't know why we are so squeamish around that. You talked about also...
And the men who are squeamish, if your woman came to you and said that her period hadn't come, you'll be panicking.
they would be scared. But also, you talked about young girls missing school, and also you have lots of NGOs that tell us about young girls being exploited because they go and ask men for money to purchase these pads, and we know there's nothing like a free lunch. So I think this is also an intervention that can go a long way to curbing some of these ills. Maybe not completely eradicating, but I think many women have said it's in the right direction. And Susan, I know you have to leave us very shortly. I also wanted you to speak about the issue of exporting healthcare workers to other countries. The health minister talked about engaging in export of human capital, if you will, healthcare providers, but doing it in a way that is beneficial for both parties, i.e. the government, the country, as well as the individual. He says he's hoping that this will curb the menace of young people going abroad without the proper the proper documentation. And Nanaya, you've spoken about it many a time, that a lot of young people go abroad seeking greener pastures and find that actually what they're getting into is something they wish that they wouldn't have gotten into. Let me quickly acknowledge on our phone lines or via Zoom, I believe, engineer on Zoom. Okay, he's on Zoom. Bear with me. Susan, just before you also make that intervention there about exports of healthcare workers, let me say good morning and a warm welcome also to engineer Abdullahi Mahama. He joins us via Zoom, and he'll be speaking to us more extensively about disaster reliefs and what has been said by the finance minister. Good morning to you. Mr. Mahama, good morning. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, Susan, it's 8:20.
I'm fine. How
All
are
right.
you?
I am doing great. And I'll be coming back to you, and we'll talk more about disaster relief and some interventions that have been put forward by the finance minister. All right, Susan, your bite on that, and then I'll come to Nanaya.
So the exploitation of healthcare workers. I think that we need to put a system in place where we satisfy our needs before we start exporting. You know, we should not export when we have deficits. You understand? And so we need to look at the reasons why we have deficits and fill those places, you know, before we start to export the surplus that we have. We can make it a policy that we want to export people, so we will train them sufficiently such that they are exportable. You understand? But like I said, we must first satisfy our needs and find out what is it that is urging people to move on. Because there are some people, it's not just about money. You understand? It's about having a proper working environment, having the tools to work properly, and not having some of the heartbreak issues where even simple things that you require to work are not available, and you see your patient, just dying unnecessarily. You understand?
Right.
And for some people, that is the motivation to move on. To a better environment.
That's an interesting perspective, Susan.
Yeah.
It's not even just about the remuneration,
No.
really about how they feel in this system, working in these conditions.
Yeah, there are some people, it's not about the... we shouldn't make our health professionals look like it's all about the money. Yes, money is good because you live a good life. But for some of them, it's not about the money. It's about the heartbreak issues that they face on a daily basis, and it's depressing for them. You want to go to work and be happy that you have a good working environment, and that the tools that enable you to build on your skills and enable you to give of that vocation. Because being a health professional, it's a vocation. It's not just an ordinary career. It's a vocation, So, and that vocation is to see to it that people are healed or are better off from when they came to you. You understand? So we have to look at all that. You get it? And then how difficult is it to get into the system? Look at this 321 pharmacists that they went into the job and they didn't get paid. I wonder how many of that 321 are still present in this country. You get it?
Yeah.
Because they get an opportunity to go and practice pharmacy elsewhere. They will go. You understand? Or they will not even stay in the hospital system. They will move out and to do other things. And maybe in a hospital where it actually, if you look at it in terms of pharmaceutical care, you required 10 pharmacists. You probably have only 3 pharmacists because other pharmacists don't want to be in that situation.
Absolutely.
So yes, it may be good to export because we may get the benefits in terms of the remuneration they will bring back to the system. But we have to make sure that our system is good enough for our people to get the best kind of health, and not just export them. Because, like I said, it's not all about money. Okay, so they go out, they bring in money, and our healthcare system is so poor that you can't do anything with the money because money doesn't work on its own. Has to be, something has to give. So he can look at that. We can train people and make sure we train them well, that they are good for this country, they are good for any other system. You understand? But we must find ways of filling our system that our people, because it's about Ghana first. Ghana last, Ghana always. It's not always about money. If it was just money, that the galamsey that we are doing is just money. You understand? But what do we want as a people? We want good health care, because if our health is good, we are happier, we are more productive.
That's
our
right.
health is our wealth, we are wealthier. You get it? So he needs to look at the system. What is there? How can we get more people to fill in the positions that we are supposed to fill, so that we don't have a 1:10,000 nurses per person, but we have the correct figure that WHO has put in place. Okay. So that must be taken care of. And then, of course, we can export the rest.
Absolutely. Susan, thank you so much for your thoughts on this particular issue. Some interesting insights that you've shared with us. Nanaya, let me come to you. I know you've had a lot to say about young people. They want to Japan, they want to leave the country, they want to leave the system. What the finance minister said is that there's some opportunity to get into partnerships with other countries that need healthcare professionals. What do you make of that?
You see, I mean, you remember the Cuban doctors who used to come here, but I also agree with Susan. We need to look after ourselves also to ensure that we have people here, I mean, who would, nurses who would work, and well-trained nurses and specialized nurses who would also work to our benefit. Yesterday, I was talking to somebody and I said that it was a joke. I said, when I sat in the room during the swearing in of the deputy ministers, I looked into the president's face and I said, this man is thinking of another hospital. When he spoke about, when he spoke about the Mahama Care and all the primary health care, I mean, funding that has been put in place, he actually even mentioned the kidney specifically. So I'm surprised Mr. Ahinkra is saying he doesn't know about that. He mentioned it specifically.
Yes, I think maybe he wasn't too abreast because he mentioned he hadn't followed the conversation.
Yes. He mentioned it specifically that there's going to be specialized fund, dedicated funding from the NHIL to deal with kidney issues. So I know that in spite of the fact that there's this intervention, I would rather call it transfer of critical know-how, medical know-how. Transfer of technology is done all over the world. There are times that technology is transferred through people. So it's not like we are going to just send people as exports, but it's a form of a transfer of technology to other countries where there is a need. You see, because of COVID, most of the medical health officers died abroad.
So in Europe and other places like in Italy where
most
they were
of them
hard hit.
Yes, a lot of them. And there's a need for nurses to be recruited. So some of these countries think that if you already train the people, critical mass of a transfer of technology, why not, I mean, try and get them over here where there is spaces for them to work and work in good places. Sometimes there's a period of 5 years, 6 years, and when they come back, they also come and transfer whatever they have learned over there to us, and it is part of the conditions that are going to be put in place. So I believe it is not a bad thing at all, but as Susan said, we should also look after ourselves. I am very much interested. Mr. Ahinkra sounded a little bit perplexed about the issue of kidney care. I don't think it has been truncated. What the minister, I believe, was just trying to say that whatever intervention the MPP put in place was not sustainable.
Okay.
And remember, I always said that this thing that they were doing is just for only elections.
So to clarify, at the time, we heard from the then Vice President, Dr. Baumia, that kidney patients could go to a number of hospitals and access the care free of charge.
Free of charge. Do you get me?
Yeah.
But I also remember at this same platform, I asked the question, how is it being rolled out? How sustainable after 1st December? Nobody could answer me. You remember they put together some 200 million or something.
That's right.
And how was it even shared? How was it coming? Was it ad hoc? So this is what the minister has said. And the minister would not just say because he's there now and he sees what is there. There was no sustainable funding. But with this one, under the under the Mahama Care, there is sustainable funding for kidney dialysis and its related issues. You see, I even want research to be added to it. For me, I hope Susan will say, I don't want to say blanket that it's because of what young people are drinking and what. No. What is environmentally causing 18-year-olds, a 16, I know somebody who never drank anything.
Because we've got 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 40, young.
They never, the person, she never drank anything. That person has kids. I know people who are straight, they don't do sex, they have kidney disease. So I also believe that as part of the process, it's in there somewhere. We also do research. It didn't come out, but it's there. The research into why young people are getting kidney diseases. You can't just say blanket that, oh, it's what they are drinking. No.
Because that's alarming. 18 to 45-year-olds forming a bulk of our kidney patients.
And that is the bulk of our human resource.
That's right.
The young people. So as we talk about paying for dialysis, that is end stage. We need to also look at what is happening. What is going on? And we should also encourage, with this primary health care support and all that, we should also encourage people to do their medicals, their 6 months, every 6 months. It should be mandatory. Abroad, when you are there, they will send you a text message that your time is up.
Yeah.
After the UK, they make it so stringent that it's like you've committed a crime.
They'll hound you.
They'll hound you. You know it. They'll phone you. They'll ask you, you should be there. So I think that kind of system should also be in place. But typically, we need to, you see, we have been all clouded with the dialysis end stage. But in between, what's going on? Is it even COVID? Why are we having, is 13-year-olds having this thing?
I think we could be still experiencing some rippling effects
It can be.
that.
I mean, you cannot be sure. COVID affected some organs of some people. Is it COVID that is causing this? We need to look into it so that we curb it.
Surely.
So that we put an end to it so it doesn't happen. And on the issue of the sanitary part, it is a very brilliant thing. And I know that it will be done properly. And I do believe that it's going to affect lives. The young women in schools, young ladies in schools. It's not even in schools, even some people who are along the way, selling. We should promote it. Some people still use cloth. When you go to some villages.
That's right.
Yes, they still use the cloth. Which is not hygienic. So it is a very brilliant idea. And as I said, this budget is humane. This money is being used to look after us. They would have used it for SML or something. That will benefit them. But this time, the money is being used to benefit Ghanaians, women, young women.
All right, Nana, thank you for that. I'll come back to you, of course, before we end the conversation. Let me jump back onto Zoom and speak with Engineer Mahama. We'll be talking about some of the disaster relief interventions mentioned by the Finance Minister. Mr. Mahama, again, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Yes. Let me pick your preliminary thoughts on the budget statement that was read out on Tuesday. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, I'll say good morning to your cherished viewers. And I would like to use this opportunity to say happy Ramadan to my Muslim community. Today is our 13th day of the fast. So we are gradually getting there. My preliminary thoughts or perception about the budget that was read was that generally, by and large, I think the aura or the euphoria was a bit encouraging. You hear snipes of people, sections of almost all the CSOs, the SSOs, the business fraternity. They sound very positive. And even the engineering fraternity, I believe that coming from that side and having heard the minister's budget allocations for the built environment, i.e. construction, the environment, if it's actually policed to the latter, I'm sure we are in for quite a very good progress. Let me put it that way.
Let's talk specifically about some of the disaster relief policy interventions, or at least amounts of monies that we're told will be allocated to support victims. So some 242.5 million Ghana cedis allocated to support victims of the Akosombo Dam spillage, and also some 200 million Ghana cedis for victims of the tidal wave disaster in Ketu South. I'm sure you'll agree that these are good interventions, but for many Ghanaians, they want to know, what should we be doing to actually prevent some of these disasters? We are often quite reactive. What can government do to be proactive?
Right. So first and foremost, it's a laudable idea. The funding allocated for both the spillage as well as the tidal waves, the communities around the Ketu South is good. There's no intervention. There's no amount of intervention that will be adequate for disaster victims. However, it is only better that at least we start and then we see the way forward. There are some of the disasters that are what we call the force majeure, which is the act of God. If you look at the tidal waves especially, I've been on your stations over and over the years, educating or advising the sector ministers or all those institutions how to find a way to address some of the ones that are within our means. The depletion of the ozone layer is causing a rise of about 2 cm of the sea annually. That's per statistics, because the iceberg is melting. It's just like you doing a demonstration of putting a ice block into a cup or a container. Once the block continues to melt, it displaces and then it overflows. So once we are getting the ice to be melting on the seashores, we are getting the water to rise. And so it will get to a stage. You know what happened at Pilife around Dansoman and what happened around the Ketu South, where the communities, those beautiful islands, are disappearing. And we're not going to get those islands back, because once the sea waters are inundating these areas and submerging those communities, the communities will have to be moving upstream. So the ones that we don't have absolute control over, we'll have to find a way to plan to move or periodically evacuate our people from those areas. Now, when it comes to the ones like the spillage, that happened, I think, last 2 years. Last year, the weather has become such that the rains are either torrential or we have extreme drought. And so, can you imagine somebody going to work in the morning and then getting home in the evening only to find out that he doesn't have a home? That psyche is enough to get a person off. That's why when the spillage happened, I was so happy we had psychologists also going there to speak to the affected, the victims who were all affected within those communities. Now, if you look at what I want to make at an intervention, I think we shouldn't always be reactive to interventions. There can be a proactive intervention and then reactive intervention. The reactive interventions is what government want to do now, but the proactive interventions stem from the fact that there are houses or there are structures or there are activities that we are seeing yearly springing up in areas where, per the physical planning scheme, are not supposed to be cohabited by humans. But negligence, stubbornness, lack of oversight responsibility from both sides of the party, in this case, authorities and then individuals, are contributing to the level of devastation that we are receiving. Because if we have 10 houses in an area where whenever there's a spillage or whenever there's a flood, those areas are going to be inundated with the flood waters. And now we get a concentration of 100 settlements in those particular area. That means that the hitherto support that government would have given to 10 persons within that locality will now have to be stretched to 100. And so these are some of the things that when we actually plan ahead, we are able to make sure that these are minimized, and then government's little intervention can come in and actually save the people who may be in too much need of such interventions.
All right, engineer. So you were talking about people building in places that they shouldn't. For example, yesterday or it might have been the day before, we saw the Greater Accra Regional Minister going to certain Ramsar sites where some buildings have been sited. I think some walls were actually pulled down because of where they are located. So are these some of the issues that you're saying we need to pay particular attention to so we don't get to have some of the issues we have with flooding and so on and so forth? In fact, we're told that this year the rains will be coming a bit earlier, and we'll try and connect with the Ghana Met to give us a full picture of what we can expect. Engineer Mahama.
I pray and hope that the Greater Accra Regional Minister will not be stampeded along the way. We all remember our former minister, the giant that we all knew in Accra, started the same activity or the action. Somewhere along the line, he was halted, and we're told that it was Precious Within halted the extensive demolition that he planned to undertake at the Ramsar site. Ramsar site is a heritage site. In fact, one of the heritage sites on the World Health Organization plan. So if the minister has started, once again, this current minister, we would only wish that the media would give her the necessary coverage and dig deep in order to find out that there is no unseen hands that will torpedo her efforts to ensure that those areas which are supposed to be buffer for almost all the waters coming from the high hills will be reserved as buffers. Now, TV3, you remember about 2 years ago, happened at the Wager. And this has been happening over the years.
That's right.
And in fact, in 2023, I stated that the rivers or the tributaries that are contributing to the Wager, from Bensusu, from Kedum in the eastern region, to Bensu in Nsawam, and the Kwa, these areas are experiencing flood. Communities, especially in some areas, which hitherto have not experienced flood in about 60 years, had flood crossing the road, and all these end points get to the Wager. And so the announcement of the management of the Ghana Water at Wager has been so consistent. However, buildings are springing up like mushrooms at the birth of where the spillage happens, where the water is supposed to move into to meet the sea. So we shouldn't be acting like ostriches, where we expect that government at every time will come to our rescue, when we should be quite responsible. Now, if you want to segment it into two, government can ensure that whatever amount, however small it is put judiciously or can be used to affect persons living in these areas to actually cover their damages. Government can do two things. The proactiveness is to ensure that the assemblies who are mandated by the Land Use and Special Planning Act at 2016 at 925 use that document to the latter. Because if the assemblies become so proactive, it means that government allocation for disaster, however minimal it is, can be sustainable. But if we don't get the assemblies to be very proactive, then no matter the amount of money government actually sink into the budget for disaster management would lead to nuts. So one other thing you have to recall is that we have seen some officials at the assemblies, local government assemblies. So you see, planning doesn't start from the top. The localized assemblies, when every assembly plans well and connect to the next district or the municipality, it means that the interconnectivity minimizes damages. Now, if the assembly is doing what is needful, sometimes you get to some assemblies, and this is like it's not news to some of us who have actually been spearheading this kind of campaign. You would get to an assembly where the technical officers at the assembly, having the foresight or having the knowledge in an area, decide to prevent X number of structures to be constructed in X locations. And they get the dissatisfaction of some of the MMDCEs. And sadly, when these people who are trying to champion proper development to minimize devastation or disaster, before Jack, these persons are removed and transferred. These are realities that I wish the local ministry, before even an MCE or a DC or an MP allegedly brings up a name of a technical officer in the special space to be transferred, I think they have to get to those areas and do thorough investigation to establish why the pressure. And I'm saying this, that it happens in the field of engineering.
So
why
Mr.
the
Mahama,
pressure for transfer of people in those areas. And when this is done, and the engineers get the backing of their local assembly or the ministry, they would work, and in working, they would minimize the devastations of some of these things that happens in our communities.
So that's why, Mr. Mahama, you say that we shouldn't behave like ostriches. There are different reasons why some of these disasters come about, and you say we have to trace it to the root cause. I'm not sure if we have Felicity on the line yet. Felicity Ahafianyo is the chief forecaster with the Ghana Met. We were hoping to speak with her and get some more insights about the climate. I know that climate change is something that is afflicting us all and causing some of the disasters that we see. Unfortunately, we won't be able to connect with her on that issue, but it's something that the Ghana Met has made us all aware of, that this year the rains should be coming a bit quicker than anticipated. And of course, with that, there are many issues that we have to contend with in the capital and beyond. Then, Engineer, let me bring you back in then very quickly to put your final thoughts together. I want to ask specifically about transparency and efficiency in disbursing funds to these affected communities, because it's one thing for funds to be allocated, but the actual distribution and the management of this, it's a whole separate issue. What should we be doing to ensure that when disasters do occur, we manage it effectively and ensure that the relief items and the money is distributed properly?
I'm sure that mostly, you know, when disasters happen like this, the local assemblies rely on the various assemblymen and women in almost all these sub-communities, and then they present to them the number of people who have been affected as a result of either floods or spillage or tidal waves or even tremors. And so when the lists are actually vetted well, with inclusion of the media plays a key role here, and the police through the time of disbursement. You know, mostly sometimes what they do is that they may go in and quantify the level of devastation to each house. And then when government brings, let's say, 100,000 Ghana cedis, they do that proportionately. Sometimes they look at the fact that, okay, this community or this affected person had X quantity of things that got damaged. So they will do this. So it's a technical thing. I'm sure that when the assembly with their technical officers and the financial team who are coming from maybe the national office team up together, they're able to do this, and then they put in a very transparent way, because I'm not too sure that people will be called into an office and a secret place to come and be taking the booties that government will bring to the community. When it has to do with housing, I remember last 2 years, your good selves, your station and other media houses actually went to the Akosombo area where the spillage occurred, and you put up some structures to actually accommodate people, and it's actually ongoing, where engineers volunteer to come and do designs, to do construction at no fee, to help these people to relocate to higher areas. But in summing up all these things, like I said, the ostriches mantra, there's something happening in the Kosovo area.
Right.
The lands that were acquired before the dam was constructed, if the lands were duly compensated, then the natives in that particular catchment area would have to be systematically allowed to move from the area where we can't do anything about it. Because see, if the waters are coming, like the metro is giving us the forecast, that they are going to receive X quantity of water to, let's say specifically the Akosombo Dam.
Right.
The Akosombo Dam contains about 153 billion liters of water. And it becomes necessary that at any time T, when they are receiving another quantity of water from upstream, Bupe, Yape, Salaga area coming towards the Akosombo Dam, they would have to spill in order not to collapse the dam. Now, when you are trying to prevent the collapse of the dam, it means you have to spill.
That's right.
But the spill also comes with disasters.
That's
but
right.
The most craziest thing is that if it does spill and the dam collapses, almost all the 9 communities in that area, in the speed of light, will be washed into the sea. If you can recall, in 2022, in Libya, when the management were told to actually spill the water, and then I was told that there were management lapses, and the dam collapsed. A fortnight, in less than 24 hours, 22,000 people all crashed, were all dead.
And that's something
And
certainly
so
we don't want to see in our part of the world.
So therefore, we have to do the spillage.
That's right.
But what it means is that if we are going to control the spillage, we have to plan and get some people to exit the spillage path, so
That's
that
right.
we cannot be putting so much money, like yearly. If the government is going to do 200 million yearly to relieve these disaster affected persons, then these monies could have been used to get them new lands and
That's
plan
right.
to get them to a higher height, so that we can avoid the spillage subsequently to those areas that will be affected.
Thank you so much for your thoughts, Engineer Mahama, on this. Let me come back into the studio and get the final thoughts of Nanaya Jantwa. We've heard a lot because the disaster situation is one that affected many lives. In fact, still affecting many lives in the Ketu South area. In fact, along many of our coastal areas. And if what we're hearing is anything to go by, this year we have to be also very vigilant if the rains and when the rains come. So some positive intervention there, of course, by government allocating these funds. A lot was said about the last administration, the response to the disaster victims. What do you say about this, and how we also move forward thinking about disasters and our response?
I mean, the response is key. This is a very good intervention as against what His Excellency Nana Addo told the spillage victims, that they don't vote for him, and they are even lucky that he has come there to see them. But this is a vast difference, and I believe this amount or this intervention will go a long way to help them. But going forward into the future, we should also take some of the responsibility, and that's the way we even, live around certain areas, blocking waterways, some of the human activities alongside, rivers and some critical areas. You remember the Weija, there were lots of call for people to leave the vicinity of the Weija river and all that. So we also have a response, especially going into this rainy season. We also have a responsibility, and the assemblies to have a responsibility to ensure that when some human activities are going on around certain critical areas, they should be able to deal with it immediately, because it also borders on the safety of people. So whoever is responsible should be able to do that. The minister, I mean, is a woman and she's doing a great job, and I believe we should all help her. I do not think that, I mean, from where she stands, if what she's doing is good, anybody will say no, because if you lose property because of a flood, because of a force majeure, a tidal wave, it is problematic.
That's right.
Yes, and it's not only property. If you lose property, you can acquire. But if you lose a life, you cannot bring back
In fact,
that
that's
life.
what Engineer Mahama says, that there's never going to be enough to compensate a victim because you can't get back things like pictures and memorabilia, all of that
But
stuff.
if you are even alive, you don't even really think too much about pictures and all that.
Right.
But if the life is taken, I mean, it is also a loss to the nation, because we need our human resource to be intact, to be able to, I mean, exact all the interventions for economic development and also harness our purposes for the development of this nation. So, I mean, lives have to be protected, and it is key that we do that. So, I mean, it's a good intervention, excellent intervention. I told you that the budget is a humane and a human and a bold budget.
And that's what you say we're seeing with some of these allocations and policy interventions.
I mean, it is very key. I mean, this thing happened, the spillage, it was human-made. Somebody was negligent. They didn't do what they were supposed to do, and it happened. Nothing happened to them. Nobody investigated.
They said they had to spill, you know.
But if you have to spill, you knew ahead of time. This is my area, so you knew ahead of time. You shouldn't go back in there. But we believe that if it happens, now the rains are going to come, and I mean, if there's going to be an overflow in the catchment of the Volta River, the Akosombo, I believe that they should now start planning with the Metro Department to ensure that this does not happen anymore. Government can continue to give relief to disaster victims, but as I said before, when somebody is lost, you can't bring them back. So, I mean, this year, I am encouraging or urging the VRE to have a close collaboration with the Meteorological Survey Department. That's how they are called, right?
Ghana Met, yes.
Ghana Met.
Yeah.
So that they would know exactly the volumes of rain going to come about in the catchment area. Absolutely. So they should be able to plan, and they should plan well. Even if you have to evacuate and put people in safe homes, and after your spillage.
We do that in a timely fashion.
Yes, you do that in a very, very timely fashion.
All right.
Yeah.
Nanaya, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking with us this morning about the topic of the 2025 budget, and in particular, the health and disaster relief interventions. And today I was joined by Susan Edu Amankwa, public health pharmacist, also Nanaya Chimpim Jantwa, presidential staffer. We also spoke with Abdullahi Mahama. He's an engineer. He shared some insights on disaster relief. We also had Bafo Kojo Ahinkra, president of the Renal Patients Association. A number of you also joining us on the stream with very interesting commentary as we were also discussing the topics. Thank you all. We'll park it here for the big issue and go on a quick break. Remember, we're still cashing out. It is *439#. If you don't play, you don't win. Make sure you play as many times as possible. Well, don't go too far. We will be right back.
Download OneXBet app and enjoy the variety of sports anytime, anywhere. OneXBet app, at the heart of the game.
One upgrade is nice, but a double upgrade is amazing. And that's how we do it. Upgrade today to get even more with Step Up. If you're on GoTV Max and upgrade to GoTV Super, you'll get way more with GoTV Super Plus.